Hi YouTube, Darth here. I'm kicking off the start of Battlefield 1 on Yes or No, a series where I give a clear and concise answer as to what weapons you should be using in Battlefield. Today's weapon is the Cei-Rigotti, a semi-automatic rifle which is also the first weapon available for the medic class. It comes in three variations, the Cei-Rigotti Optical, Factory, and Trench. Today I'll talk about all three variants, but more importantly, should you be using the Cei-Rigotti, yes or no? Yes. I took an extra week on this review because I wanted a clearer picture of what yes or no weapons look like in Battlefield 1. That being said, the Cei-Rigotti lands just slightly above the waterline, and while it has some nice features, it is not without its major detractions. I'll talk about the nice things first. With 10 rounds in a fully loaded magazine, the Cei-Rigotti has enough capacity to easily handle one enemy and take on 1 to 2 more. The damage model of the Cei-Rigotti generally means the soldier is going to take 3 to 4 bullets to kill. Unless you're particularly savvy with headshots or catch your target unawares at close range, this generally translates your magazine to 2 kills. The Cei-Rigotti has a good amount of performance at close and mid-range. The M1907 and Autoloading 8 are better up close, and the Mondragon and Zebslada M1916 are better at range. The close to mid-range performance of the Cei-Rigotti fits nicely between those alternate choices. The time to kill of the Cei-Rigotti is about 404 milliseconds to 452 milliseconds in this under 35 meter territory, which is pretty good for medics who are intent on staying close to objectives. Much past that, and the Mondragon and Zebslada take over. Keep in mind that assault class weapons are going to thoroughly trounce the Cei-Rigotti heads up when closer than 20 meters, so there's a bit of a sweet spot between 20 and 35 meters. The Cei-Rigotti is a relatively even, middle-of-the-road weapon for the medic class, so it's not surprising that you start your Battlefield medic career with it. But it's not without its detractions, and those are actually pretty limiting, so let's talk about those now. The variable bullets to kill of the Cei-Rigotti is a major drawback of the weapon. It took playing with the Zebslada to realize just how much this hurts the Cei-Rigotti. At 37 meters, the Cei-Rigotti transforms from a 3 bullet to kill weapon into a 4 bullet to kill weapon. In addition to vastly increasing the time to kill of the weapon, having to fire a 4th bullet greatly decreases the chance that the kill shot is going to land on your target. It also introduces an inconsistency to the weapon that is harder to compensate for than the more consistent 3-shot kill weapons of the medic class. Because the Cei-Rigotti is loaded with stripper clips and individual rounds, its reload times are naturally worse than the whole magazine loading weapons. This disadvantage is offset by its magazine size, but loading a full complement of 10 bullets requires 4.567 seconds compared to 3.5 seconds for the M1907 and about 3.4 seconds for the Zebslada. Both weapons that in that time reload far more ammunition than the Cei-Rigotti. Beyond 35 meters, the Cei-Rigotti gets less reliable at a pretty steady rate. If you're constantly in the action, this might not matter much for you. But on maps with long lines of sight like Sinai and Scar, this can mean a lot, particularly when engagement ranges are 40, 50, 60, or more meters. On these kinds of maps, the Cei-Rigotti might be better put away for something that has even more performance across the board like the Mondragon or the Zebslada M1916. So those are the primary drawbacks of the Cei-Rigotti. I'll talk more about the variants later, but for now let's look at the performance of the Cei-Rigotti variants and the performance versus other medic rifles. Crossing the time to kill with a chance to hit reveals some interesting information about the Cei-Rigotti's variants. Keep in mind that these graphs were assembled using aimed fire as opposed to hip fire. For the most part, the difference in aimed fire isn't apparent until after 60 meters. At that point, the optical variant gives somewhat better performance than the trench or factory variants. Taking the optical variant and comparing it versus the other medic rifles reveals the Cei-Rigotti's strengths and weaknesses. As you can see, the Cei-Rigotti stays competitive until about 37 meters, and then just looks worse as time goes on. The Autoloading 8 has better overall performance, but you have to be willing to live with just 5 rounds in the magazine, a very serious restriction. So the Cei-Rigotti offers a bit more flexibility in ammo for a slight cost in time to kill and the weakest performance at range. Again, I said that this gun was just barely a yes, as its limitations are definitely frustrating. There's nothing surprising about the middle-of-the-road recoil of the Cei-Rigotti. The weapon has a 0.7 degree per shot upwards recoil with a balanced left and right deviation of 0.32 degrees. The semi-automatic medic rifles have a flat first shot recoil multiplier of 1, and their first shot spread multiplier is also flat at 1. So outside of normal spread, every shot fires the same provided you can keep your sights on your target. With this recoil and spread pattern, you're going to see the Cei-Rigotti go up and form what is roughly a V shape the more you shoot. Unless, for some reason, you change the pull in the weapon customization, this is what you're going to see. To compensate for this, you need to just pull straight down while firing. Depending on your variant, there's still 0.125 to 0.25 degrees of spread per shot, so your shot will continue to bloom when firing in quick succession. Alternatively, with the trench and optical variants, simply wait about 128 milliseconds between shots and your recoil and spread will completely reset. The factory variant resets recoil about 50% faster and spread resets twice as fast. Keep in mind, this does increase your time to kill substantially, but can be very useful beyond 50 meters for greatly increasing your chance to hit your target. How you play the Cei-Rigotti depends a bit on which variant you're using. The trench variant lends itself more to hip fire at close range, while the optical variant optimizes itself for aimed fire. In general though, the Cei-Rigotti is good at close to medium ranges. Maps like Amiens, where long sightlines aren't typical, are prime territory for the Cei-Rigotti. I try to stand behind cover or outmaneuver my enemies and catch them at about the 20 to 30 meter range, which is the sweet spot of the Cei-Rigotti. Charging headlong into combat is not necessarily the strength of the Cei-Rigotti, though you can make hipfire work for you in certain circumstances. As I said earlier, you're going to lose if you try to go heads up with most assault weapons, as everything but the MP18 has superior time to kill compared to the Cei-Rigotti. Again, it pays to catch your enemies outside their ideal ranges and inside your own. If you do find them up close, that's the time to shoot fast. Otherwise, it's generally better to pace your shots, particularly at long range. Another thing to be aware of is the reloading mechanism of the Cei-Rigotti. As a clip-loading weapon, the Cei-Rigotti will always load the largest ammunition set available. Your stripper clips load bullets in groups of 5 and are done first, and your individual bullets follow up after that. The general strategy for your reloads is going to be to always reload in sets of 5. You pay a penalty before and after any reload, so loading as much at once is really the ideal. Since clips load the most bullets the fastest, you'll want to aim to reload at 5 bullets or run your weapon down to 0. That's not to say you can't reload single bullets, just keep in mind that it's going to take you an extra 1/2 to about 2/3 of a second for each extra single bullet reloaded. And when you're reloading your weapon, be sure to keep yourself guarded, as you're going to need anywhere between about 2 and 5 seconds to get fully reloaded. The Cei-Rigotti comes in 3 variants: the factory, the optical, and the trench variant. The factory variant predominantly just provides better recoil reset. The optical variant gives twice as good initial spread and spread per shot increase for aimed fire. The trench variant has twice as good hip fire spread multipliers and half as much spread per shot increase during hip fire. So which variant did I prefer? Well, I initially played mostly with the optical variant, but after reviewing the charts from earlier, I switched to the trench variant. All 3 variants are extremely close in performance in the Cei-Rigotti sweet spot, and I decided I'd rather have superior hipfire performance for when I really needed it. That's why I ended up using the trench variant. Now, I did make 2 modifications to the weapon that I felt helped it play a bit better. First, I changed the iron sights to be buckhorn sights. That was purely a cosmetic choice. Secondly, I altered the magnification to be 2.0 times. This multiplier felt like a better choice for zeroing in on enemies in that sweet spot, and I felt it also gave a little bit more reason to use the trench variant's superior hipfire up close. As for the bayonet, I think that's up for you to decide if you want to run with it or not. From my understanding, there's a slight penalty to readying your weapon after a sprint, but other than that, the added functionality a bayonet gives you seems to only make it a win, even if the mechanic is wonky from time to time. The Cei-Rigotti is a solid, middle-of-the-road semi-automatic rifle. It does just well enough to earn a yes, but it's not exactly a wow gun. It's competent enough at close to medium range, but doesn't perform great at longer ranges. Ammo management is absolutely crucial. A pretty solid starter weapon. As you play more Battlefield 1, you might find that you prefer its more specialized cousins. If you want a bit more consistent performance, then I recommend the Mondragon. A consistent 3-shot kill. It has slower DPS than the Cei-Rigotti, but is generally more reliable. If you need something better up close, I'm a fan of the M1907 Sweeper. It has the advantage of being a magazine-loading, high upfront DPS rifle with an automatic feature, and it's about as good as you're going to do for the Medic CQB at launch. That's it for this episode of Yes or No. If there's something you think I missed, or if you have a particularly different take on the Cei-Rigotti, please let me know in the comments below. If you have a weapon you'd like to see reviewed on this series, please leave a comment indicating which weapon. If you like what you saw, please be sure to force choke that like button. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.